And even though right before I went vegan, we've been studying yoga and all the teachings of yoga, but still, those things that you learn when you're growing up, those are belief systems that kind of get stuck in you. But when I went vegan, if somebody opened the door and let something out of me where I was like, hey, where have y'all been all my life? I don't know. I love life today in a way that I couldn't love it before. I couldn't embrace it before because I was so conditioned to love some and not the others. I was conditioned to accept some and not the others. The whole political realm, I see things totally different there, but basically it's just to accept one another, to accept, love, and live and let live. Jeez.
The Vidal Speaks podcast.
Episode 97, Renee King-Sonnen's love story, from cattle rancher's wife to becoming a vegan and saving animals together now. Welcome to Vidal Speaks. My name is Deborah Vidal, former 11-year LPGA golf pro turned classical homeopath, certified plant-based nutritionist, and wellness coach. Each week here on Vidal Speaks, we bring you knowledge, inspiration, or natural remedies to help you take charge of your health and feel your best. I believe health is freedom and knowledge is power, so tuning in each week will give you the power to take steps towards freeing yourself from the chains that hold you back from having the energy to do all you want in life. No matter where you are in your journey of wellness, Vidal Speaks can help. I promise. Hey everyone, welcome to Vidal Speaks Wednesday. I'm so happy today. It's the holiday season. You guys know by now I love this time of year. I have wonderful memories of the holidays, and it seems that during the holiday season, people just tend to be nicer to each other, don't you think? We should be sending out love all the time, but for some reason during the holiday season, there's more joy in the air, and I love that. And this week especially is a time to be filled with gratitude for all we have, because each of us, no matter what we're going through, we all have so many things to be grateful for. So I hope you guys are feeling good and having a good day so far. But I can assure you that after today's show, you're going to be feeling better, because it's such a touching story. I call it a love story, and for sure it's going to improve your mood and bring a smile to your face. Smiling's a way of healing, So yeah, let's all smile and heal with this wonderful story today. My guest today is Renee King-Sonnen, and her story is amazing. Some of you out there may have heard it or seen her on TV or other shows, but you're going to love the interview here. I always say better than anywhere else, because you guys know I ask so many questions. In the end, you get all the scoop, all the info, and the deepest story possible, or at least that's my goal. I'm going to give you guys a little clue about Renee's story. She's married to her husband, who not too long ago was a cattle rancher. She was a cattle rancher's wife. Then she became a vegan. And the important thing is why she became a vegan and how, but I'm not going to tell you that part. But after becoming a vegan, her marriage was in jeopardy, and you will learn what she did to make it work. It's a great story. It's a story of compassion, but also of hope, because it shows each and every one of us out there that we can change, even if we've been closed for years, or even if we have these really strong beliefs in place that were just based mostly on childhood or some old belief system. Many times we operate from an old belief system that was instilled in us from childhood, and we never questioned it. If we don't challenge that or revisit the ideas often, then we're stuck in a place that's so narrow-minded and closed, and it shuts us down from growing in life. You're going to hear Renee talk about this, and that's my favorite part of her story, as it offers hope for humanity to see just how people can change. I love that, because we need to spread the love around and help change the world. Becoming vegan is a big decision in life, not only for our own health, but for the health of the planet and all its creatures. Mother Earth is a beautiful home, and doing all we can to save it feels good. But becoming vegan honors all lives, including our fellow sentient beings, our animal friends that we share the planet with. And when we go plant-based or vegan, we end up deeply seeing the world in a more compassionate way. At least that's what I believe. I don't think being vegan or plant-based makes anybody better than another person. So I'm not saying this from a place of ego, but just from a place of compassion for life itself. Anyway, today's story is a good one, and I promise you're going to love it. Okay, if you guys are ready, let's go meet Renee. Of course, you know by now that I need to tell you a little bit about her first. Renee was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and is the founder and executive director of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. Renee was a city girl before moving in with her husband Tommy to the ranch in Angleton, Texas, which was once a beef cattle operation in the heart of cattle country. She fell in love with all the farm animals, having no idea that her life was about to be forever changed because of her husband's ranching business. After witnessing time and time again the baby calves go into the sale barn, she became depressed about the inherent cruelty of the ranching business. By October 2014, she had decided she no longer wanted any part of ranching. She went vegan and began pursuing her vision to open a vegan farm animal sanctuary. She forged relationships with many key leaders in the vegan movement who offered insight and counsel. And with tremendous determination, as you will hear from her story today, she created Rowdy Girl Sanctuary Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit. Renee has always been an entrepreneur and an entertainer at heart. Her background includes a career as a professional performer, producer, Texas realtor, and her interest in yoga and wellness culminated in several businesses, including the build-out of a multifaceted medical spa and yoga studio. Renee's passion is her greatest asset. She believes her true calling has finally found her in her work at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. Now she is a catalyst for change in a sometimes dark and cruel world to educate others about the importance of adopting a vegan lifestyle. Her greatest aspiration is to be an advocate for ranchers. It's time to start rescuing ranches now, she says. Okay, you guys ready? Sit back and relax and enjoy this great love story. It's a love story for her, it's a love story for the animals, and for all of us. Okay, here we go. Hi, Renee. Thanks so much for coming on my show today. I know we had this planned months ago, but you guys were hit by Hurricane Harvey. Oh my God, what a journey you've been on. And I feel so honored to share your story with us today because I know your sanctuary was hit really hard by that hurricane and you've worked endless hours to help save the animals. And I so appreciate you coming on my show and doing this. So welcome.
Thank you, Deborah, for having me on the show. It's been a real challenge to finally get to sit in our office again. Today's the day, and I really couldn't wait to be on your show. I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, and wow, look at all these weeks later, and today's the day you're in your office. That tells everyone how hard you've been working. But maybe let's just start there because that's what you've been doing all these weeks. So I'm going to share your story for sure. You have a wonderful story, but let's first go a little bit backwards and talk about the destruction that Hurricane Harvey caused for you guys and tell us about the sanctuary and what happened and how you handled it.
Well, it happened, we started hearing about it on around August 23rd, and we were just like, it's a hurricane out in the Gulf. It was a Category 1, and living where we live, on the coast, near the coast, not right on it, but you're familiar with hurricanes. We've ridden a lot of them out right here, and so as long as it was a Category 1, we were like fine with it. But then, as we kept watching it, just in within a 24-hour period, it just started developing into this monster that all the newscasters were just like saying, "This can't be. If this happens." There's going to be all this water just, barreling down on our area. And so we started making preparations immediately because of what happened to us last year. We had a 50-year flood event last year. And so, that wasn't supposed to happen. And, we thought, well, 50 years later, maybe another flood like this. But in the back of my mind, because I believe in climate change and all the things that go with it, I wasn't convinced, but I certainly wasn't expecting what happened back in August. We were completely devastated. We had to evacuate all of our animals. We have a total of 96 animals. So
wow.
Yeah, and so they all got evacuated. They were all in safe locations. But the process of doing that, we had nobody here with us on Sunday just because of the nature of this storm. None of the employees could get back here, and so it was just me and Tommy trying to weather this and get the rest of these animals out. And I was terrified, but we did it. And me and my husband stayed at my mother-in-law's home where she's passed away, and the house was vacant. So gratefully, we had a place to stay. When Tommy could come back home, we got all the animals back finally. And, but I still couldn't come back home because the house, the offices were still being restored. We had 13 inches of water in our structures, everything out in the pastures, everything was just fence lines.
Wow. Oh my God, what a mess.
It was a mess. But now here we are. I'm back home. I figure if we can get through something like this, we can just about get through anything. And I had the foresight to get a documentarian down here from Oregon. His name is John Meyer, and Glenn Scott Lacey, the producer of the vegan movie, told me that he would be great. And so in the middle of all this, we filmed a documentary that's coming out Thanksgiving Day. It's called Rescue Ranch, and it goes. It gets released on YouTube on Thanksgiving Day.
Wow,
and,
great!
Yeah, we're excited about that. It's freaking amazing. So.
Oh, and is it a documentary about the whole process?
It's a documentary about what happened to us during Hurricane Harvey. The footage is compelling. It's dramatic. It's emotional. It's full of love for the animals. It speaks on climate change. It's 30 minutes, and it's just packed with, so much of what people need to see that goes into, former ranches loving their animals enough to save every last one of them. And when so many ranchers around us, lost their animals. I mean, there was pigs just trying to get to shore, cows dying everywhere. I mean, it was horses, rain rot. It was horrible.
It's so sad. Horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. Like we don't have to deal with enough animal suffering just from killing them to eat, and now we got to watch them struggle like this. That's really a shame. But what a great idea to do a documentary so people can see, the process and what you went through. And is there a way you can send me the link to that to put it in the notes?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's on my YouTube channel. I think it's right at the front right now, but I will certainly send that to you.
Okay, that sounds good. And if people want to donate to your ranch, let's do that right now and tell them where they can do that.
They can do that at rowdygirlsanctuary.org.
Great, because I know you guys need help, especially with all that you've been through. So if all the listeners out there want to help, now you know what you can do for a good holiday donation. So
appreciate
all right. Wow, that's devastating. I know because I subscribed to your newsletter, and right after it happened, I was watching all your pictures and looking at we were scheduled, I think, to do our interview like the day after that hit or something. So I was very closely watching everything that happened. And anyways, it's been an amazing journey that you guys have been on. And I guess that saying, what doesn't kill us only makes us stronger, comes true, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. That's a fact. And we are making plans to move. We're not going to be staying here after that happened to us. This was an purportedly 800-year flood event. And so I'm thinking this is the new normal. And I'm I do not want to stick around for another one. So we're looking at land further inland, somewhere between San Antonio and Austin. And now that I'm back in the office and we can kind of get situated here, we're going to be putting our thinking caps on and figuring out, where we're going to be moving.
Yeah, because that's actually, some things we're going to talk about today, just because I know you're vegan. We're going to get into that next, your personal story. But obviously climate change, there are a lot of non-believers out there. I don't think many people that listen to my show are non-believer. But anyway, Puerto Rico was hit. You guys were hit. Florida was hit. These are all 1 in 500 year storms, and they're happening one after another. So it's real and it's going to happen again. So I'm kind of happy to hear that you're moving, because I wondered about that. Whoa, what if, the next one comes soon and you've just been through all this? That would be a pity. So that's probably a good idea to take the ranch inland and away from at least the bigger risk.
Absolutely. If anybody's thinking about starting a farm sanctuary, you have to look at that, and we didn't obviously pick this location for a farm sanctuary. We were here, it was a cattle ranch. So when my husband bought this property, he knew it was on a floodplain, but there hadn't been any massive flooding like this in a long time. Mm-hmm. So he never worried about it. And now look, because climate change is real. I can foresee the Brazos River, which is a huge river just a couple of miles from here. I can see its banks one day being right, lapping on our pastures here. It's scary.
Scary. That's scary to think of that. And with 97 animals, it takes a lot of effort to move them, especially fast like you had to. So that's good that you're thinking about that. Well, let's talk about your story, because the story of the sanctuary exists because of your personal journey, and both are amazing stories, how you got the sanctuary and your transformation of becoming vegan, because that's such an inspiring story to me. It just gives me a lot of hope out in the world that people can change, because you spoke a lot about all your belief systems and how you were so far away from kind of being vegan, and that just how that all changed for you. So let's talk about, who were you before the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary and before you were a vegan?
Who was I? Before I was a vegan and a sanctuary, I was a performer, a singer. I lived to perform. I loved it. I spent years on the road as a country and western singer in my 30s, early 30s, and all up into my 40s. I've had bands, I've had duos, I've had single acts. I've produced shows. I used to produce a show. In fact, right before I started the sanctuary, I had a show that was called the Texas Women of Country Music. Renee King and the Honky Tonk Queens is what it was called. Yeah, and so I love to produce women that are just, really stellar talent. And so, I love putting on shows, and I just had a real good time doing that sort of thing. I was a realtor. That's what I was doing right before me and Tommy remarried. And I could write a book on just that stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, I'm a homeopath, Renee, so homeopaths always ask lots of questions, but it's one of the reasons my listeners like this show, because by the time I'm done interviewing, they go, wow, she asked everything I had on my mind. So I just want to let you know that up front, because I'm really interested in the details behind your story like that. So cool. You had this life going, that seemed exciting and you loved it. It wasn't like you were in some mundane life and hated your job or anything. So what was the moment then, or the day, that you decided that this life, or your viewpoint on your life, was going to change, or that it wasn't right? I mean, what was the first turning point to become vegan?
Well, can I ask you a question right quick?
Sure.
You're a homeopath, huh? Like a homeopathic doctor?
Well, they're not really doctors because there's no licensing for a homeopath to be a doctor, but I have a certification and I've been practicing for 20 years until I started the show. I stopped my practice to do this.
Yeah, so I'm just going to interject here because in the 2000s, when was it? What year was it? I can't even remember what year it was, but I had a medical spa. I was my doctor at the time wanted me to put together a business plan and a model for a wellness center. And I did that. I was a massage therapist for many years and a yoga teacher. That's another thing that has always been a passion of mine. I've studied yoga for 30 years and had yoga studios and massage therapy and essential oils is all a big thing.
Yeah, but, so you would love my work.
I know. That's why I had to stop for a second before I answered that question, because I just wanted you to know that, I was able to, at one point in my lifetime, actually create a home, like a holistic wellness center with a bunch of doctors. And I had that for just about, almost 3 years. I was involved with that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, that is cool. And when you get your ranch back up and you have a little breath, then you got to go back and listen to some of my other episodes, because I do episodes on oils, on all kinds of interesting health topics that you would like. But let's talk about your idea now of, your veganism. Like what got implanted in your mind? What happened from one day to the next where you decided life was going to change for you?
Well, I married Tommy for the second time and moved here to the ranch. I'm a bona fide dyed-in-the-wool city girl, and I really didn't want to move here. I liked living in the city. I still love the city, man. I love it. I'm just a city girl, at heart.
Yeah.
But Tommy, had acquired this land, and he wasn't budging. And so I moved here reluctantly and really didn't like it. Didn't like the dirt. Didn't care for the cows at all. It wasn't like I didn't like them. I just didn't have any interest in them other than they were just there. They were just there. Yeah. And Tommy wanted me to help him with cows, and I really didn't want to help him with cows. So one day he comes home and he says, "Hey, I heard about this guy up the road that's got these baby calves, and I wanted to know if you wanted to go look at them. They don't have a mother, and I thought maybe you might want to, bottle feed them." And he pulled on my heartstrings because I don't have kids and couldn't have kids. So I said, sure, let's go look at them. So finally he got me interested in looking at some cows. So I went over there and, oh my goodness, there was the Rowdy Girl and Bobo. That's who came back home with us. And they were little baby calves. Bobo died very young with some failure to thrive disease. She just never could make it. But Rowdy Girl, oh my goodness, she got her name because she was so rowdy. She was always jumping up and down and bouncing and kicking her heels. And she would run to me, to be fed twice a day. And she's quite the prima donna. And what happened is when I started feeding Rowdy Girl, it was as if she was giving me entrance into a world that had forever been shielded from me through conditioning, through, acculturated dogma. It was as if when I was feeding Rowdy Girl, she was feeding me a line of communication to the cows. And I can't explain it any other way.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
And this is what happened. It's exactly what happened, because when I was feeding her, she was feeding me the language of the cows. And I would look at them, and now all of a sudden, these animals that meant nothing to me whatsoever were starting to come into focus for me emotionally and in my heart center. I started to see them as sentient beings. I started to see their personalities. I started to see, who hung out together. I could figure out who the babysitter was. It was as if, I started observing them because of my yoga practice. I love the practice of observation. And so I would observe them, and it was as if I could tell what they were thinking just by their energy, the way they looked at each other, the way they moved. So this is what started me into this world of viewing the cows as a being that deserved respect. I never considered it before, and it started really messing with me. It took me 6 years to go vegan. I didn't go vegan that day. When you're married to a cattle rancher, there's loyalty. We'd been married twice, so it's not like I could just go, hey, I'm seeing the cows, let's go vegan. No, it wasn't like that at all. I wasn't even thinking about vegan.
Yeah, what a tough situation though, because now it's your second time you're married, and now you're kind of falling in love with these animals. And I mean, the last person in the world that you think's ever going to go vegan is your husband, who's a cattle rancher, right? So you're kind of like feeling in a tight spot, I imagine.
Well, yeah, and I wasn't even thinking about vegan at the time. All I knew was that I was, having interest in these cows. And so I started following them around. I started giving them names, and Tommy would tell me, you got to stop naming them cows. They're not going to be here forever. You know what we got to do with them. And I was like, but why do we have to be in this business? So I started, questioning him over and over about why we're in this business. Why don't we eat our own cows? Because I was still eating animals at the time. I couldn't understand for the life of me why we sold these calves and didn't eat them. If we were going to buy cow meat, why are we selling these animals and buying cow meat from the store?
Right.
And Tommy told me one day, finally, after a discussion with him, he said, Renee, I cannot eat the cows that I know. And Deborah, I stopped dead in my tracks, and I looked at him, and my mouth opened, and I was like, really? So we can eat the cows from the store, but we can't eat the cows that we know. I said, Tommy, there's something wrong with this picture. And he said, Renee, we can't look at it this way. This is our livelihood. This is what we do. You've got to stop thinking like this. Stop naming them cows. Stop following them around. Stop. And I couldn't. And so it was year after year that this happened. We began having more and more fights. I mean, the first time the calves went into the red trailer and went to the sale barn, I thought he was going to have to take me to the hospital, because the first time I wasn't prepared for the mama cows chasing the red trailer with these babies that had been baited for days to go inside. These babies that I had been following around, that I had been naming, were now going to the sale barn, and the mama cows were chasing after the trailer. They chased it until they couldn't chase it anymore up the fence line as the trailer was going up the road, and they just cried for days. And so that had such an impact on me. I remember the first night hearing them cry. All of these cows, it's not just a moo. It's a wail. It's a grieving mother for her children. Aww. They were grieving so horribly. I looked at my husband. He was watching the news or something, and I said, Tommy, can't you hear them? Can't you hear them? He said, Renee, you can't listen to that. You've got to tune it out. I said, I can't tune it out. And so I went outside with them at the fence line, with them all crying, and I got to my knees, and I screamed and I cried with them, begging their forgiveness. And I screamed into the Mother Earth. That's all I knew, is that the earth could take my grief. I couldn't hold it, but I knew the earth could. So I cried in the earth and with the cows. And that was a real, that was the first time the babies went to the sale barn. But then over the years, I became more and more jaded by being human. I started not enjoying my humanness because I was obsessed with wanting to know why we were doing what we were doing in this industry. And I kept pushing my husband. I pushed him to the point to where, we eventually were getting all of our milk from a dairy because I was like, I'm not going to buy milk anymore at the stores or eggs. We had our own chickens feeding us eggs. We had a dairy that brought us milk. They even had the name of the cow on top of the lid, and the butter and the cheese. So this was all homemade dairy stuff, and I thought I was doing so good. And then I started doing the research on even local dairies. I mean, we all know, hopefully, that the dairy industry is atrocious.
Yeah, for sure. My listeners have heard from me about this, but it's good that you talk about this from the perspective of what people think is healthy milk, raw milk, fresh milk from the cows. It's still so dangerous.
Oh, not only is it so dangerous, it still kills these babies. They still have to do something with the baby males. And what really drove it home for me is somebody came over and told me that there was these little baby males that somebody had dumped, and they still had their umbilical cords on them. And, it was like they were just dumped at this ranch and nobody knew what to do with them. And we were in a sanctuary at the time. This is just something I heard, and I couldn't believe it. That's when I started doing all the research. So this was a local dairy. Local dairies, they don't want these male calves.
Yeah.
And I started doing the research and seeing that they're just as bad, as the big industry. They still have to enslave the mothers, and they still have to take their babies. And
yeah, it's a horrible thing. So sad. Oh, so you were so touched. So then did you take those baby male calves, or did you,
No, that was before we were a sanctuary. I didn't know what to do with them. There was like 12 of them.
Oh,
they were like near, this was what I found out about this from our milkman. He was just talking about, this was before we were a sanctuary. And he was telling me one day when he was here that these 12 calves, somebody had dumped them at some ranch and nobody knew what to do with them. And I was like, and they were dying. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, that's a moment in time way before we were a sanctuary, that made me one more time get jaded in my humanity.
Right. So these are all things that are adding up on the list that are over these 6 years that it took you to become vegan, that are like moving you in the direction without you realizing what's happening.
Absolutely. It was because, as it takes what it takes to finally let that great big ball that's been pushed down forever to just come to the surface and to be free of the dogma of, carnism. It's such an entrenched belief system, and
as many other belief systems we have are, and it's hard. It's a really hard place sometimes because they're there since childhood, and sometimes I feel like we've never even really thought about them or asked ourselves if that's really what we think is right. It's there, and it's like you said, it's kind of like just an old belief system that is there and you've never questioned it. But something happens in many of our lives, and we become to a certain point where we just have to question that. Like you can see here from your story that over these 6 years, you've been given opportunities to kind of see what was real. And and you're using these opportunities not in a conscious way thinking, oh yeah, I'm soon going to be vegan. It's just pulling at your heartstrings, and you're feeling sadder and sadder and questioning more and more what we're doing.
Yeah, I'd never even talked about the word vegan during this time. I just was becoming conscious a little at a time. But my years of yoga studies, I've studied both hatha yoga and kundalini yoga, and I have just hours and hours of teacher training, and I'm an Ayurveda practitioner, and so so my mind gravitates to what's beyond the physical plane. I'm just that type of person. And so when I started being put slap dab in the middle of all these animals that I was familiar eating, I was forced to really look at, things that I thought I believed, like ahimsa, for instance. Ahimsa is, nonviolence, not harming anyone, any being. And here I was saying I loved animals, and I was eating, my chickens, and, not the chickens that we had here at the ranch, but, I would bring a Chick-fil-A sandwich home, and my chickens would be at my feet. And I loved my chickens. I would never eat my own personal chickens. They were my friends. But then I was eating Chick-fil-A, and I looked at them one day, and they were looking up at me. And I said what I said. I said it out loud. I said, gosh, I could be eating your cousin. I could be eating you. And
yeah. And that's really, Renee, the part for me. I think I ask almost every guest on my show, because there is such a huge disconnect, and sometimes I don't get it. And maybe because, I'm not born a vegan. Most of us aren't, but I became a vegan or a very animal conscious and vegetarian / vegan at a young age. And I just feel like I don't understand why. I know many of my friends love animals, and I know they do. They can even hear of a sad story and cry over an animal, but yet they eat them every day. And I know there's a big disconnect. I don't understand how that happens. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about that, because you are coming to this point in your story where you're starting to question things. And that's the part that I think some people just don't get to. They just keep blocking it out long enough where they never ask themselves those questions. But your ability to not eat your own animals and be okay eating another chicken or another cow or whatever, that's so interesting. I never heard that. And that shows you that even your husband saying that he couldn't eat his own cows, that shows you that you kind of realize on some conscious level what you're doing, but you have to push it far enough away. And by getting other meat or other chickens, it's a way of pushing it far enough away to not be too personalized.
Because belief systems are just as real and rigid as a structure you would build out of building materials. Belief systems, when they are structured powerfully through politics, through religion, through education, through familial traditions, those belief systems are more powerful than we ever know. And the only reason I know this today is because I went vegan, and it was as if the moment that happened for me, my DNA, something in my DNA switched, and I saw nothing the same. It was as if I was waiting, my soul was waiting for the moment that I quit, that I stopped half-assing it, dadgummit. It just can't be, I love my dogs and I'm going to eat chickens. It just can't be that way.
I know. I know.
And you know what was, one day, right before I went vegan, I was on the internet all the time, and I was driving my husband crazy because I could not stop watching the slaughterhouse videos. I wasn't vegan at the time, but my soul was taking me there. I wasn't even telling my husband, I wasn't even hardly thinking the word But I was watching these slaughterhouse videos and crying, and my husband was going nuts. And I stumbled upon a Melanie Joy.
Yes.
You know Melanie Joy?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I've had the pleasure of meeting her, and she's a powerful, powerful speaker. And she was doing a dissertation on why we eat cows, eat pigs, wear cows, and love dogs, or something like that.
Yeah, I have that book of hers.
Yeah, I have it too. And so, but it's kind of a hard title for me to remember. But she was doing this dissertation, and have you heard the one where she's got a family sitting around the table and they're eating beef stew?
No.
Well, okay. So this was a defining moment for me because I've been watching all these slaughterhouse videos, and my husband's telling me to stop, and I won't stop. And then here comes Melanie Joy, and it was such a sweet, innocent gathering of a family having a dinner, and they were eating beef stew. Everyone's enjoying their beef stew. They're loving it until someone says, "What's the recipe?" And then the lady of the house says, "Well, you start off with a pound of very young golden retriever."
Mm.
And everybody stops eating. They couldn't even put their spoon back in their mouth. And they looked at the lady of the house, and she looked at them. And then she says, "Just kidding, it's cow meat." And everybody nobody could eat still. They were still just shocked by that image. That image of eating a dog instead of a cow, somehow at that moment, it got through the barrier. Mm-hmm. And it was like they got the dog and the cow connection. And they couldn't even eat it when she said, "Just kidding."
Yeah.
So that night, it was Halloween 2014. That was October 31st, 2014. And my mother-in-law was still with us. And every year it was a tradition to go to her house with the kids, my nieces and my nephew and my nieces and my nephews and my sister and her husband and everybody, and the costumes for the kids and the parade. And she always cooked something. Well, that evening we were all there. The kids were running around. There was lots of noise. Everybody was just having a good time, waiting for the parade. And my mother-in-law brings out a big pot of beef stew. I had just watched this.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and this is how I went vegan. This was the moment. I looked at that beef stew, and I looked at her, and I wasn't even talking to her when she said, "Renee, would you like some stew?" And I'm like, "No, I can't eat that." And she said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Because it's got floating, dead, hacked up animal parts in it." Everybody in the room stopped talking. If I would have said because I'm vegetarian, or even if I'd have said because I'm vegan, I didn't even think the word vegan. What I said was I'm not eating that because it's got floating, dead, hacked up animal parts in it. And everybody stopped talking, looked at me. My mother-in-law looked at me. She said, "Well, Renee, you can pick it out." And I said, "No, ma'am, there's no more picking it out for me." That's the moment, the defining moment. I'll never forget it. Something happened to me the minute I said, "No, ma'am, there's no more picking it out for me."
Wow, that's strong. I mean, you'd had a lot of, what could you call them, like warnings or more events that brought you to that point. So that was the end. But I feel like nothing's really an accident. And watching that video and having that served that same night after you watch that video, it's like a message like, okay, now's the time. It's the perfect time. So that's a very great story. Why do you think other people can stay for so many years in that place of, I don't know, is it just denial, or what is it where they push it so far away from being personalized to what's on their plate?
I think a lot of it has to do with their connection to their family and to their friends. Since I've gone vegan, and, my husband's vegan now too, I tried doing like the traditional Thanksgiving holiday meals and Christmas with family members with, dead bodies around. I tried it the first year. I took food, but, when I saw the bones, the carcass bones of this turkey in the sink being totally disrespected, being vegan, I almost lost it. I just think people have a hard time with family.
Time to take your break and stretch. I just want to remind you guys to put as many plant-based dishes in your Thanksgiving meal as possible. For your stuffing, instead of sausage or meat, try the Gardein meatballs. They have all that sausage flavor and they're delicious. Or you can use the Beyond Meat crumbles and add your own spices. You can buy tofurkey, or Gardein makes these little turkey, kind of like turkey breasts, if I hate to even use the analogy, but that's what they're like, and they have stuffing inside, and they're really delicious and easy. And if you add your vegan mashed potatoes with gravy made out of mushrooms, then just your sweet potato dish and your cranberry, you've got a delicious Thanksgiving meal without any cruelty behind it. And how about that pumpkin pie? You can make a vegan version of that so easily. And pecan pie? Yum! Right after this, I'm going to be cooking up my own delicious vegan meal. I can't wait. But before we get back to the show, I just want to ask you to remember to use the Amazon banner on my website, vidalspeaks.com, for all of your shopping needs. It's holiday season, and everything you buy on Amazon will send me a small commission. Without knowing who you are or what you bought, they just send me a commission, so your privacy is completely secure. I can use the help, that's for sure, because this show is 100% funded by me, yes, myself. So thank you in advance, everyone, for using the Amazon banner. And lastly, if you haven't left a review, you know what? You can do so much easier now. So for those of you, and I know there are many out there that tried and you gave up because you got so frustrated, if you have an iPhone or an iPad, they've made it a little easier. Just go to the Apple Podcast app and then put Vidal Speaks show in the search box, scroll down, and just keep scrolling down and look at the episodes, and you'll see not too far down, there'll be a little link that says, leave a review. Yay! It's still not easy, but it's easier. So if you please wouldn't mind, give it one more try, okay? All right. Don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to the Vidal Speaks podcast. Now let's get back to the show. Yeah, it's true. I've been asked that, why, a lot of people don't. And social pressure, and not even just the pressure, but it is really social pressure, because when you go out with a friend, they're always like, oh, you're vegan, or yeah, do we have to go to a vegan restaurant or something like that? And you don't realize, when you become vegan, that you don't feel like you're really separating yourself, because everyone wants their friends and whatever, but just becoming vegan is kind of a way of really separating yourself, even if it's not what you want. It's kind of sad, but it is harder socially, and a lot of people say this is why they couldn't go vegan, because it's too hard socially, or they feel they have to give up too much. And that is one of the big reasons why people don't become vegan or plant-based, however we want to call it for people out there. But social pressures are a big one. You're right.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I know for us it is. And, I used to go to my family events every year. I love my family, but I just am creating new traditions, and I invite them all here. We're going to have a really nice Thanksgiving here, Thanksgiving Day, a place called Sinful Bakery in Houston. They make all vegan, pastries, and they're having a big Thanksgiving menu. And so you wouldn't believe the menu I've ordered for us. Me and my, my staff, Kate and Stephen, and my husband, Tommy, and, and whoever else wants to come join us. We're going to have Thanksgiving right here.
And it's so delicious. I mean, I've made vegan Thanksgivings for so many years, and it's so delicious. So I really urge people to try this year, a non-animal Thanksgiving, and just really see how delicious it can be. But Renee, let's talk a little bit more. So now what happens? Now you're vegan basically, and where do you stand with your husband? And what about the ranch and all the cows going to slaughter? So now what?
Oh, Lord. And now the real, if you ever seen that movie, War of the Roses,
Yeah.
did you see that?
I did. That's crazy, that movie.
Well, that was, instead of swinging from the chandeliers, I wanted to throw him up on top of that big elk he had on the wall and hanging there, And so it was as if I felt I was living in a morgue. I couldn't stand all these horns around me. I was sensitive to everything. I became one of those vegans that was putting slaughterhouse videos every second of the day on my timeline. I was that vegan, and I couldn't help myself. I just was so angry that I'd been lied to. I felt like I was waking up from some sleep that I'd been induced by, again, the mores of religion and education and politics and tradition and family and all that jazz. Mm-hmm. I just felt like I was finally waking up, like I could just been asleep. And so me and my husband, on the outside, me and my husband can put it on. So the family and everybody thinks we're okay. We can be good on the outside in front of the public. But when there's an issue like what was going on, behind closed doors, now there was no shooting. There was no we weren't pulling out guns and trying to shoot each other or nothing. We weren't beating each other up physically, but the words, the things, I was calling him a murderer every other hour. And this is a man that is very respectful. He's like a vegan John Wayne. If you can imagine John Wayne going vegan, my husband is the type of person that is, he's got a lot of respect for his honor. He doesn't like for anyone to think ill or bad of him, because he does everything he can to always do the right thing for people and for the animals. And here I am calling him a murderer, and you got to get these horns out of here. I don't care. Get out there and dig a big hole out in the pasture. We need to have a funeral for all these deer you killed, and I let him have it, and every day in every way, and I wouldn't let him sell the cows. It was past time to sell the calves, and I wouldn't let him. I just flat out told him, you're not going to take them cows up, those babies up to the sow barn anymore. And he kept telling me to stay out of his business, and he was going to do what he wanted to do. This wasn't my business. I said, it's not a business anymore. This is not a business. I said, I'm vegan now, and I'm looking out here, and I don't see it that way. And you can't sell them cows. I kept telling him that, but he wasn't listening. And then it got to the point to where, during the day, I would just stay out with the cows. I didn't even want to be around my husband. I just wanted to be with the cows. And I followed them around out here on the 96 acres. If they sat down, I sat down. And I would lay down, and I would earn their trust, and they let me inch up to them. And I started figuring out how to get close to them, close enough to where I could lean my head on their shoulder, and they'd put their head in my lap. And next thing you know, I'm caressing them, and they're extending their neck. And I'm developing relationships with these cows that I never knew that I could have. I was crying every day out in the pastures with these animals. It makes me cry just talking about it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because here I am, my husband's back here at home, and I feel like I'm just one of the cows, you ever heard, well, I'm just one of the guys? Well, I was just one of the cows. I just wanted to be with the cows. And going vegan, it was as if their message, who they are on this planet, it's so mysterious. I still get, messages. I get messages all the time, from these cows particularly. I love all the chickens. I get messages from them too. The chickens are a real different type of frequency, but the cows, oh Lord, they're just what they've been through and who they really are. They're the salt of the earth, and just to hug a cow, to get close to a cow, close enough to where you can lean your chest, onto theirs and put your arms around them with their head on your shoulder. It takes all your stress. It completely melts any type of tension or strain that you have in your body. It just takes it. And there's something, and that's why I've got to write my book. I'm going to get this book written one of these days, because one of these days. But these animals, so that's what I was doing. I'm out with my cows every day for this, from it was like October 31st until it was, December 20th is the day I started my vegan journal of a rancher's wife. Yeah, I started that. That's the first Facebook blog that I ever started. And I started that because I needed to be able to talk about all the things that I was going through.
And at this point, Renee, are you thinking you're going to divorce your husband?
What's interesting is I had married him twice. Mm-hmm. And so me and Tommy, there's nothing that could have split my husband and I up except me going vegan and not letting him sell the cow. I mean, if you would have thought of something in a million years, you couldn't have made this stuff up.
Right.
And here we were, me and my husband are committed to this relationship. So it's not that I was thinking about divorcing him, but I didn't know how I was going to stay with him.
Right. That's an honest answer, because that's a harder problem, actually.
Yeah, I didn't know how, because I wouldn't leave him because I was afraid he'd kill the cows, and he wouldn't leave me because he was afraid I'd take over. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, on the outside, we presented a picture that we needed people to see. On the inside, it was tense. Mm-hmm. And so around December the 20th, when I started the journal, I had a friend that convinced me I needed to do that. I had no idea that I was going to wake up the next day with so many followers and people interested in my story, because I was just wanting to tell people my husband's fixing to slaughter these animals, and I got to save them, and I didn't know how. And I'd been talking to, Kip Anderson, because I found out who he was, and he helped me, with an idea to try to start a fundraiser. And one thing led to the other, and I started this fundraiser, half believing that a sanctuary could be possible, not sure, but, I sure did. It's kind of like I'd walk outside, and instead of seeing a ranch where animals were killed, I saw a sanctuary. Mm-hmm. And it went from dark to light like that. I mean, I was like, well, why couldn't this be a sanctuary? I wasn't telling my husband that. I was telling myself that. I was talking to my higher self, mm-hmm. Seeing this as a sanctuary. And then, of course, I would jump back into the reality of, my voices that says, well, that can't happen. I mean, you're in Texas, Renee, But then, when everything kept getting to the final stage of it all playing out, my husband was deciding that he was going to, sell these cows. And he told me that I needed to stay out of his business, that he was rounding them up. He was rounding up. They were too big. It was time to get rid of them. That's the words he said. It's time to get rid of them. As if, they are just property. And I said, you can't do it. And so we had a showdown out in the middle of the pasture. We were out there. He was telling me what he was going to do. I was telling him what he wasn't going to do. I was pointing my finger at him, and he was shouting at me. And I put my foot down, and I said, you will not, you hear me? I said, if you take that red trailer up the road one more time, I put my foot down, and I looked right at him. I said, if you do it one more time, I will follow it, Tommy. I will follow that trailer to the sale barn. I will make you a laughingstock of this county. I'll even buy them all back with your credit card. Or you could pick me up in jail. I will go to any lengths to save these cows. Do you hear me? I mean, I was in his face like that. And he was stunned. And that's when he said, you've got to stay, Renee. That's when there was a moment that I thought we might divorce. We never talked about it out loud.
No, but you're feeling like it could never work after this.
Never work. You know what I mean? It's this tension
right.
This unbelievable tension that you don't want to say the D word, but you're feeling it like this ain't going to work. This ain't going to work. And then, so we're grasping at straws at trying to figure out how to maneuver in this emotional web without killing each other and without busting up our relationship, And finally, I say to him, why don't you just let me buy the cows? Just let me buy the cows. And I can start a sanctuary right here. And he was like, are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? And I was like, yeah, I've lost my mind. And this is the new one. That one's gone. Here it is. And here it is. I said, I want to buy your cows. If you were to sell them cows at the sale barn, how much money would you get? And give me a discount because I'm your wife.
Oh, that's great. And what did he say? So what did he say?
And so he said, well, I could get 35, maybe 40,000 at the sale barn. I'll give them to you for 30 if you really think you could do it. I don't think you could do it. But again, we're trying to maneuver in our relationship without, we're trying to appease both of us. We're playing this dance. We're going back and forth. And I said, okay, you got a deal. And I decided I was going to start a fundraiser. And then I said to him, then will you lease me the land for $1 a year? He said, sure, Renee. I said, how about 2 years? He said, all right. He kind of laughing, He'd never, ever thought he would do this. I went online, started the fundraiser on an Indiegogo campaign, and in less than 4 months, I bought my husband's cows. And my husband went vegan in the process. Kip Anderson came down here and was in our living room with all our deer heads everywhere. I was mortified. I couldn't believe that Tommy was going to keep those deer heads because he hadn't gone vegan yet. Tommy went vegan at our first festival, May 2nd, 2015, when he figured out he could get So Delicious ice cream,
Yeah, that's a reason. That's a good reason because that's what keeps people back is a lot of dairy and cheese,
Yeah, follow your heart. So delicious. Tommy will tell you all day long. That's the reason he went vegan at our fundraiser on May 2nd is because he finally tasted cheese and ice cream that he liked.
And how about the Beyond Meat burgers now? Have you had one?
Oh,
my gosh.
He loves them. We eat them all the time. In fact, he personally hired Teresa Downing, one of our dear friends. She has a company called Local Harvest Salsa that was inspired because of Rowdy Girl. And she came down, he hired her personally to come down here and feed his metal detecting buddies hamburger, Beyond Meat burgers. I don't know, she fixed probably about 15 of them for these guys. They're little metal detector friends. And Tommy loves those. I mean, he can eat them every day.
That's crazy. I can't even eat them because they taste too real. So
yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah, that's great. Cool. Wow. So you bought his cows, you raised the money. I mean, a man should never think twice when a woman, especially a vegan woman, wants to get something done, because you're one of those doers. I don't know you before today, but I can just tell from your voice and knowing you and just feeling your vibes that you are going to get something done when you say it. So that is awesome. And so then he becomes vegan, and now is he like an animal? Does he love all the animals and he knows all their names and everything?
Now he does. Tommy went vegan for, well, let me tell you this about Tommy. Tommy is a softie, but he is a German and he's a rancher, and he would never say he went vegan for the animals. But I will tell you, Tommy's always loved these animals. He never liked sending them to slaughter. He never liked it. And now he just loves the fact that he can hang out with these cows. Yeah, he knows them all, most of them. I mean, there may be some of them he gets mixed up. But Tommy loves these animals. So he went vegan because of his health. T. Colin Campbell was a big inspiration to him. Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy, the environment. When I went vegan, I just started bringing all these DVDs. I'd order them online.
Right.
And I've pretty much told my husband when they come in, every time I got one in, I said, okay, now we're going to watch this one. Now we're going to watch this one. And he didn't say no.
Yeah, and people they realize once they watch those movies that the single really biggest factor that you can do in changing all these horrible weather patterns, and Cowspiracy really shows that, is to change climate change and to change all these weather patterns that we humans have put ourselves into because of all the greenhouse gases from the animal agriculture and all the transportation that's combined to feed these animals. It's like that movie Cowspiracy lays it all out in detail. You have to watch it if you have not. And if you think, I'm just curious about you guys in Houston there. Do you think any people after this horrible Hurricane Harvey has hit Texas, do you think any of them have made the connection to, possibly what they're eating is contributing to these storms? Or do you think they're pushing that as far away as possible because the same as you said about eating animals, do you think it's changed anything after the hurricane?
Well, I know that this hurricane has changed a lot of people. People are still in the aftermath of it. And I believe it's one of those chinks in the armor where you can't help but feel something, because this happened to everybody here, collectively here. Mm-hmm. We all experienced it. And when you can get a chink in the armor, then another thought can come through. You never know what it's going to take for somebody to finally give up their addiction to animal flesh and the cultural mores that confine them. I mean, it's...
Right. That's so true. And everyone's on their own journey, right? Look, even when you started your journey, it took you 6 years. Other people that were vegan might have said something or had some criticism, but that's really the thing that I've learned. We have to allow people to get on the path at the pace that's right for them, and not push people, and just tell them the truth and make them be aware. Awareness is a big thing. And you've talked so much today about kind of narrow-minded belief systems. So I imagine now at this point you've become vegan. Now your husband's a vegan. Does the world open up in a different way when you view other things that maybe you had belief systems about? I think you wrote a little bit about this on your blog, just how much other things changed, where you kind of opened your heart to other groups and other philosophies. And I would like to hear a little bit about that, how that changed for you.
Absolutely. When I went vegan, all the things that I had been conditioned to believe fell away. And, I see people as one today. Everyone has a right to be who they are, just like the animals do. I don't have any harsh beliefs in any type of move, like like for instance, the gay lesbian community. I mean, I have so many friends that are gay, lesbian, and I love the community. I embrace them. They embrace us. We have, board members, that I love, that are gay, lesbian, but before I was vegan, it's not that I had anything against them, but I was quiet about it. I wouldn't. I was taught that was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I was taught, in church, when I would go to church every Sunday, if you were gay, you were a sinner, or if you danced, you were sinning, or if you, all this stuff that I believed, and even though right before I went vegan, I wasn't as, I wasn't even in church. I mean, I had been going, been studying yoga and all the teachings of yoga, but still those things that you learn when you're growing up, those are belief systems that kind of get stuck in you. But when I went vegan, it was as if, somebody opened the door and let something out of me where I was like, hey, where have y'all been all my life?
Mm-hmm.
These are like, I don't know. I love life today in a way that I couldn't love it before. I couldn't embrace it before because I was so conditioned to love some and not the others.
Right.
I was conditioned to, accept some and not the others. The whole political, realm, is, I see things totally different there, but basically it's just to accept one another, to accept, love, and live and let live. Geez,
And really, it's such an inspiring story on a much deeper level than just a cattle rancher's wife who went vegan and saved their animals. It's so much bigger than that because to me, it's such an inspiration for humanity to see that someone who can maybe have I don't know, negative is the right word, but kind of a constricted view of a person or a judgment on a person before you know them. And I know we all suffer from that and we all try best we can, but gosh, to open your world and to suddenly change your view on groups such as the gay lesbian, as you mentioned, but in people in general, just to restore your faith in humanity again, because you're seeing the world through love and compassion now, instead of from what's wrong or from hate or from a different point of view. And, love really does heal a lot of things. And it's something that who can't use more love in the world today, especially. So your story to me really is inspiring for that reason, because we're so disconnected today from, the political situation today. We're being driven further and further apart. And you hear a story like yours today and it restores faith. So I love your story for many reasons, because you saved the animals, because you got your husband to see and to, maybe I would say, just live his life to what his soul believed, because he was a sensitive being that loved his animals all along, but was trying to disconnect from the reality of it. And you hung in there, and he hung in there with you to work out a wonderful solution where you guys both save the animals and both can take care of them and both love them. So what a happy ending. It's like a love story.
It is, and it really is, because our entire relationship has morphed. We are here for a purpose, Tommy and I. I really do believe we're made for this together. I couldn't do it without him. He couldn't do it without me. This is something that had to happen between the two of us for us to do this. I mean, I still look at it, because we're in the story. It's hard to see the story when you're in the story.
Yeah.
But what we've been through together, and that we're still together, is nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah, you're so right. It's such a circle. You guys have come such a big circle and completed, this place where so many would have divorced or stepped away, but you hung in there and you found a way to make it work. It's really a beautiful story.
And we got work to do, now that, that's done and, we're vegan and, we're marching forward. We got work to do. I mean, my whole mission now, what I see bigger than ever is that it's great to rescue animals, to rescue a pig and a cow and a chicken here and there. But by golly, we got to start rescuing ranches because, when you can change a ranch around, you change a community. You create a ripple effect and you stop the flow of all those animals going into the system. You stop it. And so we're in the process of developing a program called Rancher Advocacy Program where we're doing just that. And I am so excited about this program.
Cool.
We got some cool people on board, working with us to create programs because I get calls from ranchers. I get messages. I get emails. There's one I'm talking to right now. He sent me his business plan. I'm looking at this and looking at that. And there's people, hearts are changing,
Good.
And if a beef cattle rancher in Texas can do it, anybody can.
Exactly. Okay, so I'd like to end this interview with you, Renee, giving the listeners maybe 3 tips or 3 suggestions or maybe even 3 reasons on how they can become vegan or why. And just know that a lot of people out there are maybe considering it, but it's a hard road like you have experienced yourself. So what 3 things can you tell them to ease their journey?
Well, one of the things I can tell you is that not to judge yourself, to get educated, stop putting your head in the sand about these situations that these animals are in is not the answer. The more you educate yourself, the more you will be able to make changes that are right for not only you, but the world and these animals and future generations. There's a book, World Peace Diet, that I absolutely love by Will Tuttle. Mm-hmm. And if you can get one book right now, that book is full of everything you need to make the changes in your life. It really is.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's about not judging yourself, but by golly, taking action, not putting your head in the sand, opening yourself to the plight of these animals that you call food, that are being tortured and slaughtered every day. Open yourself to them, to their way of life, to what they go through, and ask yourself, would you want your children to experience that same way of life? No mother or father would want to see their families treated the way that these farm animals are treated. And so when we start looking at them from that perspective instead of, just food, I mean, I always tell everybody, I didn't have any vegans out here, advocating. Rowdy Girl was my vegan advocate. The cows were my vegans.
Right.
The chickens, what turned me vegan was these animals that I was around that I used to eat. And so put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's really what we do with people, and it shouldn't be any different than animals. But I like that. Get your head out of the sand and just put yourself in their shoes and just get up and act and in any way that you can and start on the path. However long it takes you to get there, you'll get there. It's just important to get on the path. So I think that's really great advice. And lastly, maybe you can just tell people how they can follow you. Why don't you tell them your website, your Facebook, and if you Twitter, what that is?
Sure. Our website is rowdygirlsanctuary.org. It stays updated frequently. We have a lot of great content on there. And our Facebook is simply Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. We have Twitter. You can follow us there at Rowdy Girl Ranch. We have Instagram at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. And we've recently got our YouTube channel, Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. So that's where you'll be able to see the film documentary called Ranch Rescue that's coming out on Thanksgiving Day. And we'd love, for all of you to subscribe to our newsletter. We have a newsletter that we put out with very cool content. We do everything in-house. We don't have any big companies that do our emails for us. So we do it all from here, and we try to stay as creative as we can. But, we need you guys. We need members. We need subscribers. We need followers. We got a mission we're on a mission here. We are driven to do whatever we have to do to propel this message forward into the future.
Well, that's cool. And I'm hoping, you being here today, I can help spread your mission, because my mission is to heal 1 million people and to save as many animals as possible and heal our Mother Earth. So I so appreciate your work. And before I say goodbye to you, I want to read to the listeners something that I found on your site that you wrote that I love. And here it is.
Oh, well, thank you.
Here it is. I am the change I want to see in the world. I am choosing love each and every day. Love continues to transform me to help me do our work. And there is much work to do for our fellow humans and non-humans. I hope you will join me in putting that love into action and not let the demons of our past sabotage the deeds we do today. That's so cool and so beautiful, and I feel like it says it all. And it brings
me cry.
It makes me cry. I'm crying right now. It's just like, what a great story. Renee, it's really a love story. It's a love story for the animals. It's a love story for your ranch. It's a love story for your marriage. And thank you for all your work. And I'm so happy to share your story with all my listeners. And we'll be in touch soon, but stay in touch, okay?
Oh, I will. I feel like I have a new soul sister. Thank you, Deborah.
Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, so you take care, Renee.
Okay. Adios. Bye-bye.
What a lovely story. Sad they had so much damage from the Hurricane Harvey. I was really happy to hear they're going to be looking for new land, because it's just really hard to think that this could happen again, and they have 96 animals. But it is amazing how in tragedies, communities really pull together. So I'm really happy that all the animals are safe again and none were hurt or died. And what a work it was to get all of that back up and running. And today was our first day back in the office, and I'm sure it's not over yet. Wow, that's a work, but congratulations, Renee. I love so much to hear how Renee personally changed by becoming a vegan. This is such a beautiful part of her story. It really gives us hope, because today so many people hold beliefs that are based on exclusion or even based on hate, and the world seems so divided more than ever. And so more love, that can only help heal us, right? I hope you loved her love story as much as I did. I hope it brought a smile to your face or even a tear to your eyes like it did me. Compassion is such a beautiful thing. Gosh, it hits me right in the soul. Any story of compassion is one we all should listen to. Who can't use more of this kind of news in today's world? All right, one last thing. Did you guys know that we kill 46 million turkeys in America just for Thanksgiving? We actually kill 236 million in a year. Oh my God, this is horrible. So if you don't want to be part of this, please try a plant-based dinner on Thanksgiving and see how delicious it can be. All right, you guys, I'm going to keep it short today because I've got some cooking to do. You know what time it is, right? It's time to say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed the show today, my podcast family. Until next week. Eat plants, and although it's a big day of eating tomorrow, try not to eat too much, but eat as many delicious plant-based dishes as you can. Ta-ta for now. Vidal has spoken. Remember, you heal with a plant-powered diet, homeopathy, and detoxing. Of course. Peace. Be healthy. Be free. Live life.
you.